Good morning students. Now we are in third part of this lesson, reproduction in plants. So our topic is sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction, how sexual reproduction happens. In previous video we saw that asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction only one kind of a parent will be there and there is different kind of divisions, and from that the copy of the young one will be grown, or it is produced, it reproduce of its own kind from a single parent. Now coming to this part, sexual reproduction, we need two kind of an organism or two parents to reproduce. Okay, so two parents will produce, each will produce gametes or a reproductive cell. From that, what happens? Male cell will produce male reproductive organ. Will produce a male cell called sperm, and female reproductive organ will produce a female cell called, we can call it as female cell or a egg cell, and that will produce ovum. And what happens after producing these two reproductive cells? These cells will combine or fuses to each other to produce the zygote. Okay, so zygote. This process is called fertilization. That is fusing of male cell and the female cell. This is the process called fertilization. In this process, we produce zygote. Okay. So ये दोनों mix fuse होने के बाद आपको zygote produce होगा. And from the zygote, this is a small cell, it's an egg-like a small egg. From that, a new individual will grow. This is the normal process happens in sexual reproduction. But coming to plants, what happens sexual reproduction in plants? You know that sexual reproduction in plants happens in flower. Jaise photosynthesis happens in leaf, this reproduction happens in flower. That is normal. And how it happens? For example, rose and sweet peas, every flower, every thing will not produce, every plant will not produce the same process. Okay, some of this will have a bisexual, or that is rose, and when we see this rose and sweet pea, what happens? It has two parents by itself, that is male and the female reproductive organ in one particular plant, and that is called hermaphrodites and bisexual organism. They have two parents by itself. तो वो complete है, उसमें कोई other parents जाने की, कोई other plant को जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. It has both male and female by itself. Okay, female reproductive organ in itself, and it is a complete flower. It's not incomplete. And the steps they have is that stamens, pistil, petals and sepals. These are the parts of the flower. A complete flower has. That is stamens, pistil, petals and sepals. Okay. And the next one is, when you take the example of corn and papaya. What happens in corn and papaya? They are called unisexual organisms because they have either male or a female reproductive organ. And for reproduction, they have to go for the other plant, and then fertilization happens, and then if they have male, for female they have to go for the other plant, and then they produce the young one. So this is how this happens in this example, that is corn and papaya. For sweet pea and rose, they have both reproductive organism by itself. So they will reproduce by itself. Okay. And next is coming to pollination. So ये आपको structure देखा, that is a process हम लोग देख लिया है. कैसे, that is what type of thing it is. It is a bisexual और unisexual हम लोग देख लिया है. But normal process, जैसे sexual reproduction का normal process देखा है, वैसे यहाँ पे भी एक normal process देखेंगे. How this fertilization happens in plants. Okay. Before that we have to see about pollination. Pollination आपको understand हो जाएगा, तभी आपको fertilization. ये process के बाद fertilization happens. So pollination. What happens? This is stamens. So stamens will produce a pollen grains. So stamens यहाँ पे देखा है ना? So stamens it will be in this part. Okay. So stamens will produce pollen grains, and pollen grains is a produces this pollen grain, and transformation of the pollen grains from stamens to stigma. Stamens to stigma. This is stigma. Okay. So stigma को वो transfer करता है. So this how when it transfers. This is the process. Transferring of pollen grain from stamens or the anther. We call it as anther. तो इसको transformation जो करेगा after this process, that is the transformation of pollen grain from stamens to stigma in pistil. Okay, this is pistil. So this part is the pistil. You can see here in this flower. Pistil में आप देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे है. Okay, so and in the flower you can see this picture and find it out where it is this pistil. तो यहाँ पे आपको ये पार्ट है pistil का पार्ट. तो in the pistil what happens? Stigma से आपको what is it? Stamens और anther, call it as anther. वो pollen grains आपको stigma को transfer करना. This is the process. Okay. So what is that male reproductive organ? Male reproductive organ is in pollen grains, and what will they happen? They have in stamens they have this pollen grains, and after that what it has a protective layer and it is present in stamens. Then also we have a ovules in ovary. तो ovary में आपको ovules भी रहता है, तो दो आपको reproductive cells produce हो जाएगा यहाँ पे ovary से और stamens से. So these two parts will produce two kinds of reproductive cells. So how they transfer the stamens to stigma? This is called pollination, I said you. But they have two processes. There is self-pollination and cross-pollination. So self-pollination, this transfer is happening in itself the planet. Planet के अंदर से ये self-pollination happens and cross-pollination में आपको ये दूसरा plant को जाना जरूरी है. Okay, so this pollination. So pollination हम लोग देख रहे हैं. तो pollination में what we saw, that is a pollen grain. Okay, so pollen grain contains male reproductive cell from stamens. Stamens are called as anther. So stamens or anther is what is a male reproductive organ. So these two we call it as male reproductive organ. From that pollen grain is exhibited or transferred. Pollen grain में male reproductive organ है, male reproductive cell है, that is transferred from this organ to the female reproductive organ, that is stigma. Okay, so in that the transformation happens in this process. This is called pollination, but this happens in two forms, that is self-pollination or cross-pollination. So transformation of pollen grains by itself inside the plant, if it happens inside the plant, that is by itself. Okay, the transfer of pollen grains in one plant, we call it as self-pollination, or when it transferred to the next plant, then we call it as cross-pollination. So cross-pollination happens in different ways, like wind and then insect pollination, likewise through insect and through wind. What happens? This transformation will be happening. So how insect में कैसे है? Insect what happens? Which or any other, when it comes to suck the nectar, what happens? Sucks this pollen grains. Okay, and then this will transforms into the another plant of the stigma. Okay, and or when it rubs, for example, when you see this figure 13.14, what happens? It moves from one plant to the another. It rubs like this. Okay, and the pollen grains is transferred, and then fertilization happens. And the next is through wind pollination. So wind कैसे है? If the petals आपको नहीं रहेगा, तो what happens is these parts are exposed to the surrounding. So what happens? This pollen grain is moved by the wind pollination, stigma of the other flowers. This happens mostly in plants which are flowers with small petals or they don't have petals. Okay, so what happens? Exposed to make the wind pollination very easier. तो यहाँ पे आपको one flower to the wind helps in transferring pollen grains from one flower to the stigmas of the another flower. तो आपको wind मदद करता है ये एक प्लांट से दूसरी प्लांट को ट्रांसफर pollen grains ट्रांसफर करने की wind भी मदद करता है. Next is fertilization. How fertilization happens? तो मैंने बताया है pollination का मतलब क्या है? That is transferring pollen grains from the male reproductive organ to the female reproductive organ. So after that, what happens when it is in this tube stigma? What happens? Stigma will produces the fluid, secretes the fluid, okay, and through that the male reproductive cell will grow. Okay, so this will grow and it will pushes into this and then moves into this ovary and then inside this ovule, and fertilization happens here. Sometimes the stigma which produces this juice is of other species, then fertilization would not have happened. Okay, so they should have the same kind of a species to grow and then moves towards this female reproductive organ and then the fertilization happens. Okay, hope you all have understood the sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction का मतलब क्या है आपको समझ गया होगा. And then sexual reproduction in plants. So plants का fertilization के पहले आपको pollination का जरूरत है. Transferring method के बाद आपको fertilization होगा. That is with the cell of male and with the female. Fertilization happens. This will move from this place to here and then fertilization happens here. Likewise, in the next class we will see about seed formation, fruit formation, dispersal, etc. Thank you.